Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Sales Uncharted. Today's guest is really unique, very unique. I bumped into Shane Lawrence. He's a managing partner of SMB Acuity. And when I was looking at the work he does, I actually realized that this is tremendous opportunity to bring someone which brings a very different perspective on B2B selling SMB space. Here's what was really surprising. When I was talking to him, I actually realized that he is actually doing work in a space that I don't know much about. There is some stuff that he does where he actually works with SMB customers to make them make sense of how their sales effort is going on. Think of it this way. The question I was asking myself is companies actually are paying for independent buyer research, and he seems to be delivering on that. But rather than me telling you what he does, I would really love for Shane to introduce himself. Shane, tell us what problem are you solving for? What pain are you solving for so that my audience can understand what enlightenment they're going to get from you today.
Hey, Devak, thanks. It's a real pleasure. Great chatting with you again, as always. So, what we do at SMB Acuity, what the pain point we realized that was missing in the market was every vertical is slightly different. So, as your business gets more complex, uh, your buyers are really looking for, is this solution right for me? Is it right for me in my industry? Is it right for me in my vertical? Is it right for me in my niche? And that specific research wasn't there. There's some aggregate stuff. Gartner does some good work, but what we discovered was, you really need to help them do a better job of engaging their ideal customers by giving them the exact insights for their specific vertical. So we do that through win loss research, we do it through a ton of direct buyer research, and then we help them engage and keep their best customers as a synopsis.
And this is when you were talking about win loss. That's the first time I actually realized that this is interesting because win loss is smack bam into the seller territory, right? And you're walking in, you're actually saying that I will help you, Mr. Buyer, to make sense of your sales effort and actually help with that analysis. And I was thinking to myself, that's really interesting because I have heard of people coming in and doing an M&A. People come in and look at your sales engine and then validate and knock knock, push the see if the pistons are working the right way. Is your pipeline, your forecast truly what it is supposed to be? What I would love to do is, Shane, that now that we have an understanding of what problem you solve for, can you give me a perspective? What typically happens inside an organization before someone in that org decides to come to you and say, hey, I need buyer research? What are they reacting to?
Okay, great question. So the reality is, no one wakes up thinking, "Boy, I'd like to buy some buyer research," unless they've got a
Oh,
lot of money left in budget. I mean, the reality is they usually have a sales performance problem, so they have an issue. We're not closing the deals we expect to close, or we have a bunch of deals that seem to have stalled and then get closed. So they have that issue. There's a pattern; it breaks. A sure thing falls flat. So they're really looking to say, "Hey, look, what's missing here?" What we're looking at is saying, well, let's not look at how you sell. There's lots of great sales training methods, the Sandler method, et cetera, great sales coaches. What we're
Yeah.
really saying is, let's get the direct, from the customer feedback on why things broke down and where the sort of the gaps were. And that's really where win-loss research comes in as an example. It's the diagnostic tool you use to say, hey, look, why aren't we converting the sales we should be converting?
This is interesting. So this is now taking on the flavor of a B2B consulting, helping people make sense of their sales engine. But I have a question for you. Isn't that the job of a sales manager, Shane, to do that type of stuff? Or do you think that you bring a different perspective that a sales leader may not necessarily have?
100%, you're right. So buyers, it has nothing to do with the salesperson or the sales manager. The reality is when someone leaves, um, and they decide not to do business with you, and they decide not to do business with your three other competitors, and they've picked, option five, say, they don't want to go through long, complicated conversations with the, 1 through 4 on why they didn't pick them, and, et cetera. There's no upside for them, and there's a lot of downside, right? It's like talking to a 3-year-old about why they can't have something. They just keep saying why.
Why?
There's no upside. So the
Yeah.
reality is, when an intermediary like us does those interviews, there's no relationship to protect. There's no deal to resurrect. It's not like they're talking to the sales manager who's going to say, well, what can we do to make it right? They don't want to have that conversation. The ship has sailed. They've moved on, but they're happy to be helpful if it doesn't cost them anything. And that's the real value of sort of an independent research firm such as ourselves, which is if people can be helpful and not have it cost them anything, they're more than happy to.
So I now see your value here because I suddenly realize in a classic sales situation, if you were to tell a salesperson, go ask the buyer what went wrong. They're never going to get the true answer. So Shane, is there an advantage that you bring by being a third party, that is that you speak to a buyer and he tells you things that they would never tell a salesperson? Is that true, or is that just wishful
No,
thinking?
100%. Like, so the reality is they're looking to, often it's complicated, right? So maybe they've decided, I'm really concerned with support. You didn't seem to call me back when you said you would. So if this is your best pitch as a salesperson, I can only imagine what support's going to be like. I don't think you're a good fit. That's not
Ah, yes.
really, there's no spreadsheet for that, right? It's, you've given me the feeling that your sales follow up is lackluster. Lord knows support's going to be a nightmare once you've actually got my money. I mean, if you're lackluster in the initial stage, I'm not going to try to have the conversation with you, because then I say, oh, you didn't follow up when you said, oh, give me an example. Like, it's just a grind. No one wants to go down that
You're
grind.
right.
But there
I
has to be help.
and Shane, I'm an ex-seller, right? I
Mhm.
assure you, if I'm sitting with a customer and they start telling me that stuff, I'm going to get defensive. I'm going to start telling them things, and then they're going to tell me, look, it doesn't matter, man. We made a decision. It's over now. But I then walk away thinking that I have the upper hand because they never let me finish, therefore. But I find it intriguing though. So is this possible? So what happens now? So you have got this feedback from a buyer. Is there a mechanism whereby you actually go back and now distill this back to that organization so that they can get better for the future? How does that look like?
Yeah, 100%. So what we do is we say, it's completely anonymous. So generally, we pay people to give us feedback, just because
Mhm.
obviously, if you're going to say, hey, look, I need 30 minutes of your time to talk about the last deal you did with Deepak, people are busy.
Yeah,
They get a lot of priorities. I mean, they'd like to help Deepak, but hey, in the scheme of things they'd like to do, it's just one more stepping stone. So the
correct.
reality is, when you say, hey, look, I'll give you $100 Amazon gift card or $200 Amazon gift card, people say, oh, that's kind of interesting. So they'll give you their time. It's that reciprocity thing. So we find that we used to do, before COVID, we used to do all these, the traditional focus group behind the glass panel, have the buyers in a room, even though they knew, the commercial seller was behind the glass. 2 minutes in, as long as they're not interrupted, they don't care. They're happy
They
to be
don't care.
helpful,
I'm
because
with you.
everybody wants to be helpful. It's like when you ask people for advice, right? I mean, people are very free with advice. So when you say, hey, look, how did the buyer make you feel? Or what's it like getting this deal done internally? What were the steps you needed to go through? And then we take all that data and we say, okay, look, here's how your typical buyer journey looks like. You're not doing a good job of helping them sell it internally. So they had to sell this to their boss. They didn't have the tools. That's not your fault, but it's the reality. So you need to do a better job of helping them sell it to their bosses. Or they have trouble differentiating your solution from this solution.
From yeah,
We need to focus on. Or what we see often is, as an expert, that selling feature and benefit one, three, and seven are the most important ones they should care about. But the reality is, because of the world they live in, they're not experts. They really care about feature and benefit two, four, and six. So if you've got your list of features and benefits, you should focus on the ones they care about, not the ones they should care about.
so I just now realized that's your value, isn't it, Shane?
100%.
You and I've always said this to particularly sellers who focus on features. So I, as an example, have a product. I would love my product. I want to sell it. I'm super excited about three features, but those are not necessarily the ones that are specifically what that customer wants, and that's where discovery and pain come into play, right? And I've noticed, Shane, that most companies and most salespeople are very quick to get to demo. And I consult to a lot of startups, and guess what? The guys love their products, right? They raise funding on those ideas, right?
Yep.
And now all they see is, and if you're trained to be a hammer, then all you see is nails. It's one of those moments. But I have a question for you, Shane. In a world where there's so much money being spent on enterprise, did you choose consciously to attack only the SMB space? Is there something unique about this space? Is it a matter of just ease, Deepak, and we want to just make an impact?
It's really, yeah, it's 100%. You hit the nail on the head there, Deepak. It's really the biggest share. So at the very large enterprise level,
Mhm.
it's a very complicated selling process, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
Um, and at the very small end, in the small business space, it's much simpler. There's lots more of them, but we really found that the biggest gap really seemed to be in the small medium enterprise side. So not necessarily big, Fortune 500 banks or companies, but sort of, I guess, below that. well, I was going to say Fortune 500, but really below Fortune 100 and below, and above, guy working in his home office.
I'm with you. So it's something that I really wanted to dig into because I'm still want to make sure that my listeners get this. Now, Shane, when we talk about, so I spend a lot of time on career progression,
Hmm.
and there's this people ask me, my boss sucks, I want to leave, and I say, you know what? Interestingly enough, the data says this, the data shows that. People then ask me, I don't think I'm paid enough, also, so I think I should leave for the money. And then someone once threw back at me and he said to me, yeah, and I said, yeah, that's also a top reason why people leave. And someone said to me, well, Deepak, it can't be a top reason because when I speak to people, they tell me money doesn't matter. It's other things. I said, careful. Money doesn't matter as long as other things are equal. And
Yes,
I'm
that's true.
getting to my point. Now, Shane, question for you. You are now out there talking to, and people tell me the top three reasons why we lose deals is because the customer is stingy, customer changed his mind, customer took a bribe. They'll give me all sorts of. You have done hundreds and hundreds of this analysis, right? These so-called, I think you use the word buyer interview, right, Shane? What has surprised you the most about how buyers actually decide? That is something you can give to my audience that will make them lean forward and say, what?
Well, the best analogy I can use is or probably my favorite that I'm not supposed to use anymore, is a dating analogy, right? So the
Yeah,
classic reason it's not me, it's you. Or sorry, it's not you, it's me. I did that wrong. Isn't that funny? It's so that often they'll say in a dating situation, people don't want to have uncomfortable conversation. They decided that you're kind of uh, creepy, you've got emotional issues, whatever they've decided the reason not to date you is. Uh, no one wants to have that uncomfortable conversation, so they say, I'm not in a good place right now. I need more time. Those are polite, letting you down gently excuses.
yeah.
It's always you. It's never them. And the reality is, so the easiest one is price, right? The easiest one is they pick a price and they say, oh, they were much cheaper. Or truthfully, the most popular one now is they just let the deal languish. They just don't get back to you at all, and it
They
just
don't
comes
get
back to
back to it
why.
all.
But
Correct.
price and missing features are the easiest excuses. And then when the salesperson goes back and they put in their CRM, they put in, if they're good, they put in what the client told them. They say, client said, price
Well
was not
said.
right, or whatever. And the reality is that's the polite lie. It's the
In
letting you
in the
down.
sander world, Shane, one of the things we always tell people is that if you're going to lose on price, most likely you're losing on something else. It's not price, and you need to do that discovery, that conversation in such a way that you get better clarity. Listening to you, I have a feeling that you're kind of also saying the same thing. Price is a hill that is worthy of dying on, so therefore people make you die there. But you really need to be an adept and a smart. Let's shift the goal then. How do I become a smart seller based on some of the insights you have? I want to focus on that a bit, right? So when we talk about CRMs and so on, I have always had this thing about CRMs, and Shane, I'm one of those guys. I've got lots of white hair, and actually, my wife would laugh and say, "You have no hair, Deepak." But the point is, CRM has been something I've been working with for the last, I would say, 3 decades, Shane. Right? When CRM came out, it was something that senior execs used to say to people, you put your stuff in there so we can see what's going on, so we can go keep our
Yes.
promises at the top. To be honest with you, with all the bells and whistles today, it's still the same thing. People still use it for a forecast, right?
Hmm.
Question to you then is as follows, right? And this is a funny thing. We just spoke about people put things into the CRM. Leaders always tell me my CRM hygiene is bad. My CRM hygiene is so bad that I actually have to have a meeting to actually get the real forecast for my people. And I am very concerned about that. So in a scenario based on the work you've done, leaders like to blame CRM hygiene, but you sometimes are going to tell me that no, you need to point somewhere else, because you just gave an example of this pricing scenario, right? The CRM says that pricing is the hill that your customer says you died on, but it's not. So, what is really being edited out and by whom? I just want to get a feel from you as to how do you interrogate the CRM situations or these anomalies, or how do you coach or tell your seller and his leadership team on what to watch out for? Because the behavior that they put in that could be reflective of how they sell. And it's a bit of a stretch of a question, but I'm really curious as to what you've picked up.
No, 100%. So CRM hygiene is a big issue. I mean, it's complicated because buyers, as we said, give soft no's, right? They're trying to let you down gently, like
Yeah.
this is going nowhere, and I'm never going to deal with you. So they give you a soft no. The seller who's desperate to make quota or wants to make the commission or is just an optimist, They log their hopeful fiction. Talk to Deepak, things look good, even
Looks
though
good.
Deepak has basically said, best of luck in your next life. And so you get a well-intentioned, polite fiction that isn't that useful. I find the core value of CRM is still, I talked to Deepak, what we said, facts about Deepak, when I'm next going to talk to Deepak,
Yeah,
things of that nature. Did Deepak open my email? The real core pieces. The forecast, I think the reality is that's a training issue. Most CRM, the forecasting is junk, and I think asking people to do it is not as useful as it could be. But hey, but I just think it's a
we
really great way of ensuring you follow up. It's a great tool, but as a forecasting thing, there's a lot of training you have to put into it, right? I mean,
yeah.
experienced people are really good at knowing, yeah, there's a 90% chance this deal will close. If you do that enough quarters and you work out, well, look, Bob, you've been saying there's a 90% chance this deal will close and it ain't closed yet. Then, hey, Bob needs to revise his approach. Whereas other people are probably a little bit more experienced, they get better at predicting. But as a rule,
Yeah.
um,
No, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Finish that sentence.
I was just going to say, as a rule, it's really super useful as a tool for tracking activity, and I think that's its best use. Forecasting's not. I don't think it's a great tool for that.
It's really interesting you said that, right? I remember being in a meeting once, very early, and I've been very lucky, Shane. I've had some really cool people teaching me, and I've watched these people in action. So I learned a lot. There was this moment where someone was talking about, I'm at 90% probability the deal is going to close. So the leadership says, by when? And he says, like I said, we are at a 90% probability it will close. And the guy said, I hear the probability, dude, but when will it close? And the guy's like, look, we still have to meet A, B, C, D, and that's a process. And so he said, then how do you know it's 90%? I'm very confused. So he said 90% implies that you have some light at the end of the
Yes.
tunnel. And God forgive me if it's a train coming at you. Because if it's not the number, then I'm coming at you. And then the guy was still a bit confused. He said, I don't understand. I'm telling you the deal is ours, but I can't confirm on the time. Then the guy told him something, there's 100% probability I'm going to die. The
Yeah.
question is, am I going to die now or I'm going to die tomorrow? Because then my actions change according to that, right? He says,
Yep.
that's how lousy you sound right now. You are 90%, but you cannot tell me. And that's when I actually realized there's so much conversations that actually can be done just based on what people write in CRM and some good interrogation. But I have a question for you now.
Mm.
You have seen, and I'm very sure that based on the feedback you get from a buyer, you could literally walk back to an organization and tell them this is where your sales leadership is failing you guys,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
So if I were to push you, and let's look at CRM, we spoke CRM sales leadership. Deals don't die, they go quiet. In fact, on this podcast a couple of months back, I actually had someone, when deals go quiet was the title of his book, right? And I'm very sure that you've got this because I just heard you mention about it, that sometimes they just disappear, right? They just go. It's like ghosting, but it's happened on a deal. Question for you is, when you have seen deals suddenly just going quiet, what guidance would you give my listeners who are all B2B sellers as to what do you think is actually happening inside the buyer's organization at that silent period? Could be days, could be months. And what, if anything, could the seller have done? This is a nugget I really want to tease out from you.
And it's a fantastic one because I'd say the reality in the world we live in is that it's become more of an issue. So we've looked at internally, sort of common answers, common polite no's, common polite brush offs. Deals
Yeah,
quiet has increased in the last 10 years substantially. I'd say, though, the reality is it's more complicated than just a brush off. So often there's an internal battle the seller hasn't mapped. So, for example, you're dealing with someone, they say, "Yeah, I'm very keen to go." Their boss is keen, but they've got to get the budget allocated from finance, and that's a process. Or
yeah,
it's really understanding internally, not in a. I see this a lot where sellers will say, sort of like, "Deepak, what do we got to do to get this done?" kind of thing. Like they're more saying,
yeah,
tell me how I need to, do I need to talk to your wife or you to get this done? Well, geez, that's a really awkward conversation to have with a stranger, right? Like, so
yeah,
I, the political ambiguities inside my organization aren't necessarily something I'm, going to answer to because you demand to know what it is. And that's where the consultative selling approach and the Sandler method is really reaching out and saying, Shane, what can I do to help you sell this internally? We see
Yes.
that a lot. So I'd say if when deals go quiet, it's often you haven't answered a question they have, like, so there's an issue and they're sort of noodling it around. Sometimes it's just life's busy, they've got a lot of things on their plate, and they thought they could do this in Q1, and it doesn't look like it'll be Q3. We see a lot of people brush people off who, in the mind of the buyer, they're still amenable to a deal, just not at that moment, because
Yes.
their boss has got 15 priorities, and if you ever had a boss before, sometimes those priorities change. That doesn't mean so maybe he was having you focus on 1, 3, and 7 of the 15, and now it's 1, 2, and 3,
One, two, and yeah,
and
got
two
it.
months from now he'll be back to 1, 3, and 7. So you put 3 and 7 on the shelf, you focus on his new priorities until, and often sellers who've told their boss it's 90% done and the check's almost in the mail, they get frustrated and they say, they stop engaging. So
But
we
Shane,
find the
I
more
got,
you,
I got,
yeah, sorry.
I love that, but I got to push on this one a bit here because I kind
Sure.
of let me test you on this one, Shane. So you now have a situation where deal has gone quiet,
Mm,
right? And inside, the seller is telling his boss most likely that hey, it went quiet because this is common. Customers ghosted me; they haven't clarified their mind. But and we just need to wait it out. Question for you, Shane. In your experience, how do you tell a genuine wait from a permanent no? This is where I think a lot of sellers would really love to lean in and listen very carefully because I think this is a big problem in selling. Still, even after 30 years I've been watching this, I don't think we made a big change on this one. I still see people, and you called it hope, right? A few minutes
yeah.
back, you were talking about they live on hope, Deepak, and hope is eternal, right? So, doing nothing is one of the most common outcomes in B2B. I get it. How do you tell a genuine wait from permanent no? Is the question I'm asking you, sir. What tip do you have for me?
Yeah, and I guess there's sort of multiple answers. So as a sales manager, it's more complicated. As a salesperson, less so. I think there's leads you're nurturing, for example. So
Yeah,
just because I've talked to Deepak and we've sent a proposal and it seemed like Deepak might sign, um, but if Deepak sort of puts me on the back burner, then that I call that a nurturing deal. So it's not necessarily a
yeah,
lead. I'm nurturing the deal along, and the reality is, unless Deepak says we went with somebody else, hey, thanks Shane, I appreciate you reaching out.
that
We've
is
gone with
correct.
XYZ company because it's the boss's sister's company, and that's the end of that. Then yeah, that's fair. The deal is done. Otherwise, really, I'll keep nurturing. Why wouldn't I? I've already talked to Deepak. But I see all the time people say, I've seen people advise to say, hey, sorry to bother you. I won't bother you anymore if you don't want to respond to this message. Look, you're a salesperson. They expect you to keep pursuing them. Like that's just the nature of life, right? Like I don't think I need to be nice to a car salesman. I don't think, wow, I should bring my car salesman flowers and make sure he really likes me. I think he wants to sell me a car
That's
and
an
get his
interesting
commission.
analogy.
Like,
Yeah.
what the hell, right? Like, he should
Right.
be pursuing me. So if I ignore him, which I know is rude and I don't mean to be rude, I'm not worrying about it. If he gets offended, well, then that tells me a lot. I've had people, I
I
remember
agree with you on
one,
that.
sorry, I was going to, I'll keep talking right. See, I shouldn't interrupt me. I had
No.
one client, it took 9 months for the deal to get done. It was like only half a million, but it was $500,000 of revenue for them. And really, the only reason was the deal signing boss changed. Then the deal signing boss's boss changed when the new one came on. Uh, then there was a different priority. Finally, the company, the large it was a Fortune 500 company, was ready to sign the deal, and they were there, and they've been super polite the whole way through. So
Right.
a deal that could have closed really within the first 30 days, it was pretty straightforward, ended up taking 9 months and became a great relationship for them. And but they stayed respectful through the whole cycle. There was
Makes sense.
no, I mean, in that case, truly, I was the client, and I was impressed. Like the whole 9 months, I said, hey, look, you get nothing to report. I'll let you know if things change. And they just kept being respectful. Whereas I've had lots of people that when I was on the business side who'd said, hey, look, Shane, it's been 3 months. This is kind of rude. Why haven't you got back to me? And I'm like, well, because clearly you're an idiot. Like, I got things to do with my day that don't involve holding your hand. So now I've killed you, right? Like, and yeah, you've helped make the deal officially dead. Good for you.
Right.
And now that's what I advise. So I'll give you another example, and I'm going to keep talking, so you'll have to stop me here.
Yeah.
We
Please, I love anecdotes.
we've done a lot of work where we'll go out, and so when we do win loss surveys, and we've done thousands and thousands of them, the number of times that we talk to a lost deal, and they say they just stopped calling me. And yeah, I'm still amenable. Like I'd still be open for the solution. They just stopped calling. Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh,
I
okay.
did
I
do
see. So
it.
this is
They
the
just stopped calling
seller.
me.
This is the
The
seller
buyer,
that
yeah,
has
the seller
given
stopped
up.
calling. So yeah, the buyer says, you know what? Yeah, things changed here. We weren't ready at that time. It's been 9, 10, 11 months, but we're still amenable to a solution. Just other things came up that took the firm's energy and focus, but
Got it.
we didn't say no. But the buyer, the seller, the B2B seller had listed the deal as lost because that's why we called them,
Because
because they
that's
were
what
part
it
of the win loss process.
and this is here's the fun thing. Very early in my selling days, I learned selling from my grandfather, and he always used to tell me, many people will knock on your door, many people ask the price, many people will listen to you, many people will buy a little bit. You'll be surprised as to how many will not come back. But when they walk past your store and you recognize them, always smile. And I said to him, the guy didn't buy from us. Why should I smile? And how do you remember all these faces? He says, because it's my bread and butter, it's my livelihood. And Shane,
Mhm.
I cannot tell you. Over the course of a couple of summers working with this man, I actually realized that nearly 25 to 30% of his business was new. And I'm giving you the statistics in reverse.
Yeah.
75% was purchased from the same guy again and again and again and again. And he used to joke, he says to me, success for me is that seven generations buy from me. And I didn't understand that until I finally spent a truckload of money to get an MBA, only to realize at the end of the day, it's all belly to belly selling his relationships with judgment, right? In the moment. And you made it right. If you have marked this as in the CRM as a loss, and if you have got a mindset that says, let's move on to the next victim, right? Or because my quota has not been met, I need you're always going to be on the back foot. But Shane, I'm going to go back to an earlier point you had made about
Sure.
your focus on SMB versus enterprise, right? And yes, there are very important business how do you say criteria that you use. I use it as well. I'm a sales coach and sales trainer, and I assure you, I don't want to do enterprise selling because my God, you get paid 60 days later. You have to fill out forms upon forms, and then every decision requires at least 10 perspectives to be catered for.
Mhm.
So you sometimes not diplomatic, and sometimes you're just ending a political gameplay. But let's not digress. I have, however, B2B listeners who are from the SMB space and from the enterprise space. What I really want to make sure that yes, we both acknowledge that these guys sell, right? We get it. But since your research spans both environments and you are particularly focused on SMB, I really want to make sure that if you could help my SMB buyers and enterprise buyers to understand, and if someone is contemplating a career switch to understand the differences and nuances, what is the single biggest difference that you've observed between SMB buyers and enterprise buyers that you feel is important to call out to
Yeah, 100%. So
sellers?
the reality is we've done tons of interviews with both groups. For the SMB buyer, so say a small business owner or plumber, has a couple trucks, three, apprentices working for him. His
Yeah,
biggest concern with the solution is this right for me? Will it deliver the value I expect? And is it right? And what I mean, is it right for me? I mean, is it right for a plumber in Southern Alberta? Like really, is it right for me?
he's yeah, okay,
You got it.
specific. Yeah,
Whereas the senior vice president of sales or marketing or product for a pharmaceutical company or an oil company or a bigger conglomerate, their 50% of their concern is reputational risk. How will this affect my career if I make a mistake?
that's a
So
that's
if
a
they
very
take a
important.
risk, if they go with company A and they save Exxon, $10,000, but take a career risk, or they go with company B that costs $10,000 more, but has less career risk, they're going with company B all day long because it ain't their $10,000. They're very
Great.
concerned with career risk. So you really have to understand what can I do to mitigate your concerns about my business, my company, my solution internally so that I minimize the career risk while still showing that I deliver the value and so on. Versus the SMB space where it's very important to say this is right for you.
And I think this is very important for people to understand. I also have sold enterprise in SMB, and you're right. With SMB, it's quick, fast, single person to convince sometimes. and the decision is based on a quick judgment and a quick show me what happening. When I go into enterprise sales, yes, reputational. In fact, my ex-boss used to tell me, when you do pain and discovery, Deepak, always get down to the last question, which is, if this were to be successful, how does that success impact you personally? And the other question he said you should always ask is, I hear about all this pain that you have in the system whereby, you have 15% of all payouts disputed for the wrong calculation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what does that mean to you personally? And I was in a meeting once, and a trucking company CFO said to me, Deepak, I can tell you, I don't care about disputes with salespeople. What I care about is that they actually think that I am not paying them out of spite. And that really hurts me because that's not what I am. I'm not paid to hold people's money back. He says, so for me, it's really frustrating to have someone come and scream and shout at me because they feel I'm holding the money back for all the wrong reasons. That's not the issue. The issue is that the systems actually suck. They don't allow me to figure out the actual billing versus the real billing. And if there's credits, how do I do all that? I run 90 days behind. And because I run 90 days behind, when the final calc comes, sometimes I need to do clawbacks. And sometimes the clawbacks are so big, the guys hate me for it. That's when you actually realize that he is in it because he actually feels bad having to take vitriol from people who have just suffered because of that move, right? Then I once sat with a guy who actually told me, I've had three projects fail back to back. Only way I'm going to give you this is because my reputation, and you just raised a reputational risk. He says, if you can convince me that you will not screw this up, Deepak, and make me look good, then this deal is yours. And I sat there like a goldfish. Sometimes it's so simple and so basic that you really need to focus on it. I really like the fact that you brought that back in, right? Now, if I were to keep pushing, right,
Sure.
and I'm a seller, I'm listening to this, and I have a job interview coming up, and I say, hey, Shane seems to be a guy that knows his SMB space a bit. Shane, is SMB moving into enterprise or an enterprise moving into SMB? What do you think is the single biggest thing the guys need to think about when making that move that would ensure success for them and adaptability to that switcheroo?
That's actually a great question. So I'd say the biggest issue is on the SMB side. It is really very straightforward. It really is one-to-one selling. So they've got a bunch of pain points. They've got some issues. You've got a product and a solution, but it's one-to-one selling. Um, and as long as you're not rude or whatever, it's pretty straightforward. The On the enterprise side, like as you get larger, really, I'd say once you get over a 50-person company. So once you get to the point where you're not dealing
Yeah,
with the owner, you're dealing with someone who works for the owner, or maybe two levels down, or whatever the deal is, um, then it gets more complicated, and you have to be sensitive. No one likes to think that they won't do the right thing for the company because they're worried about the career risk.
because
They just
yeah,
are. So it's like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy that's not offensive, but it's like, if a spouse says, "Do I look fat in this?" You got some choices there. Like, you can say
yes,
what you think,
agreed.
but and this is the same sort of thing, right? You have to understand that yes, they're once they work for somebody else, they're going to be concerned about how this makes them look. The larger the company, the more people they have to be concerned about. So in a smaller company where maybe they report directly to the boss, 30, 40-person company, yeah, it's not as much. So let's say it's 20%. So
Correct.
help
Yeah.
them look smart in front of the boss. And that's easy. Hey, Deepak, when you bring this to your boss, what can I do to make this easy for you? What concerns do you think the boss is going to have so we can help set you up for success, Deepak? Not Deepak, tell me about your boss so I can sell things to the boss because you're a stepping stone to the boss and really I don't care about you. It's what can I do, Deepak, to help make you more successful and get our deal done? That's
So
the, I mean, this
Shane,
is
I,
selling
I
101,
really
but
like this, and I like your analogies. They're really in your face, as I would put it, right? You know, so, but there's something that you're talking about that I wanted to check with you. So we just spoke about if there's someone who's in the SMB or the enterprise space and the subtleties of the difference between the two. I don't want to put you on the spot, but really, a lot of the people that come onto my discussion forums come to get some tips, techniques, right?
sure.
But I want to flip this. I want to ask you a very simple question. If you were to coach someone listening on the call right now about the one career move or that skill or mindset that they should really focus on, that'll give them long term success selling into SMB organizations, what would that one piece of advice look like, Shay?
That is that's great. I'd say for the SMB side, I would. It's really about trust, demonstrating it's right for them, and conversation quality. On the enterprise side, it's really realizing that it's multi-threaded. You got to map the
Yeah, you got
political
to map.
nuances,
Yeah,
and you have to be patient with consensus. It's going to take longer. You can talk to a small business owner who's in the car on the way home, and you can close the deal, send them a payment link, and call it done. Larger
correct.
sales don't work like that, right? Like, for example, we take credit card payments. And the reason we do is because we worked out that oftentimes the barrier to us getting paid was going through the accounts payable system in the UK, getting put on their
And
system,
yes,
putting the 30
yes,
forms. And I thought, you know what? It's easier just to send them a payment link, and we divide things up in under 25 grand chunks so that it's easier for people to pay. It's recognizing the environment they live in and making it easy for them. On the SMB side, it's much straighter. On the enterprise side, it really is multi-threading. And so that's, if I was to give you advice, I mean, it's no, I know it's not one thing, but uh,
yeah.
that's where I'd phrase it.
No, but let's just keep digging into this one because
Sure.
I'm really intrigued by this. So now we spoke. Now I'm a sales leader on this call, right? I'm a sales leader, and I want to know from you that single advice that you'd like to give a sales leader, the difference between coaching a team of SMB sellers than coaching enterprise sellers. So if I'm a sales leader that has now moved from enterprise sales to SMB as an example, what's that one big change that you'd ask me to do in my behavior, in my style?
Um, hmm, that's a tougher one. For me, it's really the disqualification discipline. So, they need to, yeah, you need to walk away from bad fit deals. Like, that's true. But
Mhm.
if they're not a bad fit, like if you can work out, yeah, we're not pounding around peg into square hole, is really helping your sales team, work through that longer process and be more realistic.
Yeah.
I'd say, salespeople are like, I was going to say salespeople are like monkeys, but that's probably inappropriate. But everybody wants to do well, right? Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to feel good about themselves. Make money, feel
Yeah.
valid, know they
Yeah.
do a good job. So when you ask people, how close are you to hitting your quota, people are optimistic. I mean, if I'd say
You.
salespeople as a rule aren't negative. So it's a grind, right? So you need people who are positive, and that means that it's easy for them to be too optimistic and not realize, yeah, this is a process. It's like going to the gym, right? You got to go 347 times before you start to see results, as opposed to one.
But wait. This is interesting because if I were to pursue this a bit more, right? So I am a leader, sales leader, and I just got some advice. And we also learned that it's not just a matter of the reps have to put in the reps. That's literally what I heard you say, right?
Yeah,
So if I am talking about coaching priorities, right, for SMB teams, uh, here's how I would want to check with you. I have noticed that when it comes to coaching, in this and challenge me on this one if I've got it wrong here.
sure,
Coaching an enterprise seller is different because the enterprise seller is typically, I would say, more how do you say, he understands the layout of having to deal with multiple people. He gets that, so he understands the language, and we tend to have a sophisticated language, and sometimes these people hide behind that sophisticated language. Whereas on the SMB side of things, what I've noticed is that you get to the problem quick, you get to the determination quick. And I think you earlier said also that one of the tips I always give people is that qualify, disqualify fast so that you actually can focus on what matters. If I could force you on this one, sir, and ask you
sure.
this one simple question: why and what behaviors should leaders reinforce with SMB teams that matter far less in enterprise? Which means that they may not matter in enterprise, but it matter a lot in SMB. I heard you say trust earlier, but I think
Sure.
trust matters for both. Is there
Yep.
anything else that you'd share?
Okay. Fast, decisive qualification. So kill bad deals and call one. Talking money and
Bad
outcomes
deals,
plainly
yeah.
with owners, no corporate hedging. So if owners really want to know, is this right for me? I run a 3-person plumbing company in
Yeah.
Southern Alberta. Is this right for me? Yes or no? They don't want, we optimize throughput to maximize your per client transaction revenue. Like,
That is
which
a brilliant explanation because I'm
sounds
laughing here
great.
because
Yeah,
that's exactly the language I used when I was at the big boys, right?
yeah,
Because and here's the funny thing, Shane, I'm digressing slightly here, but when you're in enterprise sales, there's this aura that salespeople try to create that I'm the smartest person in the room. Whereas when you are doing SMB selling, I've actually realized there is no competition on smartness. The competition is on trust. The
100%.
competition is to make sense and make sense at a very different level.
Yeah,
And I kind of feel that, and I've noticed that those in enterprise sales, and you just nailed it, tend to when they get into SMB have a vocabulary that is just too hard hitting. It's just
mhm,
layered. It's like, darn it, just say you have a toothache, man. What this 20-minute discussion to only tell me that I have this radiation that makes me feel awkward at the points of eating. So you got a toothache, right? Just say it. It's one of those things. Shane, we could talk for donkeys. You have a very unique work that you do. You have access to information. Is there any reports or any data that people can get from you that we can partake of? Is there like a newsletter you guys do that we could subscribe to?
there's a link on our website to smb-acuity.com to they can download a report. If they mention they saw the podcast and Rise Up, I'm happy to send them out an example, of a win loss report, give them idea of sort of what you can expect, what buyer research can deliver, and that sort of thing. I'm more than happy to do that.
So then tell me a bit more. How do people find you? And let's repeat that website so that I can also document it when I distribute this back out
Yeah,
to people.
100%. So they can find me on LinkedIn under Shane Lawrence with my handsome face. They can find me at smb-acuity, acuity.com, and or success at smbacuity.com.
Sorry, which success? Repeat that, please. I didn't get that,
So
sir.
if they want to get me by email, it's just success at smb-acuity.com.
Success at smb-acuity.com. Got it.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Always happy to chat.
And absolutely. And Shane, I've actually enjoyed this conversation. And when you and I were talking earlier as well, I sense that this is a domain that a lot of people don't know. They typically look at post sales things as like surveys. On a scale of 1 to 10, like a Qualtrics, tell me
Yes.
this, would you buy from us again? And when I first met you, I actually realized that you're actually going back and you actually are getting coming back with such important information that you can actually help an organization figure out, do they have the right behaviors, are they doing the things in the right attitude, right time mindset, and very importantly, does your technique suck or not? Shane, do you get into or get involved with training and helping organizations on training and stuff, or do you try to keep your focus only on B2B consulting and giving guidance in terms of how to optimize your sales process?
So you're right. The reality is there are a lot of really good sales coaches and sales leaders, and we don't focus on that. We focus on helping companies find and engage their best prospects and hit them with language that resonates. So for us, the only training we do is we often do ongoing win loss programs. To if you have enough deals in the pipeline, we can help salespeople improve over time by looking at their win and their loss rates and the conversations they're having and saying, hey, look, maybe you only increased 5% your win rate, but your conversations have gotten a lot better, and we know that will translate into
And we
those
know.
sales down the road. And you're
So do
keeping more
you
people in the pipeline and so on.
do you Shane get involved with deal postmortems or deal reviews or
100%. You're right. No, that so
oh, you
really
do?
that's what a
Okay.
win loss kind of is. Really, it's a laddered investigative technique to really look at what actually drove it. Because obviously, if I say to somebody, even in an interview, why did you do something, the first answer is generally high level, and then you say, well, when you say that, what do you mean? And then you drill down and you get to the real nitty gritty. I mean, I'll use one example. We My favorite, and I know we're done here, but I like this one, so I like to use it. We did a mystery shop, and it was for a big chartered bank that was really interested in why large multi-million dollar deals weren't closing like they should,
Yeah.
and so obviously it's expensive. It was complicated. It came down to when the salesperson was interviewing, sort of the prospect, the CFO, they weren't taking notes. That was it. So the CFO wrote them off because he said, "Look, you came in here,
Yeah.
your guy chatted with me. But at the end of the day, what really made me think this wasn't going to be a good fit was he hadn't really looked at the website and he wasn't taking notes. The reality was he'd looked at the website. He didn't need to take notes because he knew all that information, but he wasn't
I'm with you.
demonstrating that he was active listening. He wasn't, building the trust and demonstrating active listening. So the fact that he knew the information and done the research didn't mean anything
Didn't
if you
mean
don't
anything.
demonstrate it.
Yeah,
And that's the trick, right? So when you know what their fears are, then you can demonstrate I'm listening. How do you demonstrate you're listening? You demonstrate by taking notes, or you demonstrate by saying, "Hey, do you mind? I'm recording this call so that later I can
later
review
on,
the
I.
notes and etc." You have to demonstrate that, and that's the key, right? Like if good intentions don't mean anything, you have to demonstrate.
It's really interesting because Shane, it's not just a standard thing, but when I look at rock star salespeople and I work with these guys, there's one thing I always pick up with them. They typically know the answers to most of the things they're going to ask,
100%.
but they ask it because they know it's a part of the process. If you
Yeah.
don't ask, then an assumption is created or this gap
Yes.
that you just called out.
100%. Yep.
And I really would like my B2B sellers listening to lean in on this one, Shane, because I think a lot of people miss the fact. The novice typically keeps their mouth shut because they really don't know what to say. So they let the customer talk, 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 talk. And then you have the other extreme, whereas you now customer talks less, and you have the guy that's suddenly learned techniques because he read a few books and has
Yes.
gone to few. He talks, 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 talks. Now the customer's confused because he's not said anything. And then the fun that I've noticed is that the professionals stop talking, they start acting like the novice intentionally on purpose,
Yep.
and
Oh,
that's the
100%.
power. And I think that's why disclosure that you just gave, I want to recall and mention this to people. The top salespeople may know all the answers, but oh my gosh, they make it look as if they discovered it with the customer together. So when they both illuminate with that light, both look at each other like, yeah, that was refreshing. But so, sir,
And
I'm
to your
gonna.
point, sorry, I'll finish on one last thought. AI is going to make that worse because
Can
AI
you believe I
learns.
was about to tell you that we
Oh,
have
sorry.
not discussed AI? Let's talk AI. I want to, Shane, let me ask you a question. And you kind of gave me an
Sure.
indication of where you're going by saying AI is going to make it worse. Let's just dial it down for 1 second. I'm going to ask you a question. Shane, do you believe that AI is going to take a salesperson's job in the near future?
It will take the job of people who sell really simple things. So if you sell paper refills for this, yeah, an AI
Yeah.
chatbot on your website will take the place of maybe a customer service rep, sure.
Yeah.
But the kind of salesperson who's learning the Sandler method, and no, I don't think so because people want to deal with people. I think what AI will do will exacerbate bad sales practices. So now
Yeah.
AI can give me everything I want to know about Deepak without talking to Deepak. So I can think, oh, I really know Deepak, and I'll make assumptions based on that. So that's often a mistake. A, because it doesn't help me build trust. Part of the when you get somebody to tell you about themselves, that's part of the trust building exercise. So if you skip that because AI is giving you a synopsis, you've
You,
missed the boat.
Shane, now you and I both know that trust is never given, it's earned. And to
Sure.
earn trust, you cannot just do it once. It has to be done on a methodical, periodical, consistent basis. That's how you accumulate it. And the more accumulation you do, the more solid it is. So that even if you don't win this deal, you still might win a future deal because he still believes you did the great job. Let's carry on with this AI conversation for one more second, right?
Sure.
Here is what I get nervous about, and I want you to just help me here. There's a lot of, and I think you are a better placed person to answer this for me. Technically speaking, you're doing buyer intelligence, if you think about it, right?
Yep.
You've met a customer, you've understood. In fact, you can come back and tell them, guys, this is how you need to change your selling style for this specific guy because this is what he told me, and this is what I've understood about his style of functioning, and this is how his corporate rules work. This is your blind spots that you missed out, so I'm going to help you there. There are now companies out there, Shane, that actually examine people's social media, LinkedIn posts. It looks around for evidence and then literally scrapes their LinkedIn profile and then tells you that on, oh, this is how they are, this is how you should approach them, because that's another way of doing bad intelligence. So the same threat that AI brings to people selling, are you threatened by the fact that there are companies out there that can analyze written word or video and predict buyer intelligence and therefore make you moot or redundant in the future? Or am I mixing things here?
Not at all. No, no, and it's great. So for us, the real risk that I see with AI, I mean, I don't see it's not. I wouldn't say a risk. If you're calling from call center in the Philippines trying to pitch somebody something, AI will make your job a lot easier because instead of going from a hey, can I clean your ducks pitch, you can say, hey, Deepak, how's everything? And you know some basic things about Deepak that you wouldn't know,
Therefore,
and
the
you know
position,
to
yeah,
scale quickly. But for a complicated selling, like it's, I guess the best analogy would be it's like you probably have friends, everyone has friends who post on social media, and you think, wow, their life looks amazing. And if I went off of that post, you think, yeah, their life looks amazing. When you talk to them, it's the husband's cheating, the wife's thinking about moving
yeah,
out, the one kid's on day parole for a violent crime, and the other one's pregnant at 16. But their social media profile looks like La La Land, and that's the problem. I'd say with aggregating information is it aggregates what's there. So large language models are great for aggregating data. So if you want to know, hey, instead of me going to Deepak's LinkedIn profile, looking up his website, looking up some things he's published, reading his book synopsis, it can tell me all that basic stuff really quickly. So the smart play is to say, hey, Deepak, I see you've written 3 books. How was that? Like, so I'm demonstrating
correct.
that I've looked into you. I'm demonstrating I've done my
This is back to
research.
demonstrated interest that we were talking about
Yep,
earlier as well. So if I were to push you and I was to ask you that,
sure.
do you feel, because there's a nuance when I meet people, I have come to realize that 70% of the time they are different from their LinkedIn profile. So my nervousness is that you're now using AI to kind of fill in this judgment because you want to do investigation upfront, check everything, and then go in with a full answer. Whereas the rockstar salespeople go in with the basic stuff, but then they build their own understanding. They look for body language cues. They look for when did he lean back? When I said the price, what happened? And AI can't do that. But I do see companies spending tons of money on using AI to kind of predict the buyer intelligence or the buyer behavior upfront. I am not convinced that it's that easy, Shane. And I'm just curious, do you feel that we are over exaggerating these realities, or am I maybe missing
Well,
the
I know
point?
I think AI companies are pitching them, and good for them. Like that they're in the business of selling AI, so they should pitch them.
Therefore,
And
they
the
should, yeah.
startups that are AI focused are also pitching them. I think the reality though is if you were before selling something blind to everyone, AI will make it much easier to segment. So hey, look, I can have AI tools go in and say I was going to do a Facebook ad for every male between 30 and 50, but the reality is my
Yeah,
product resonates best with 45-year-old Indian males. Well, segmentation is great.
therefore,
It
yeah,
took me from a broad, not so great approach to a more specific approach. But if you're looking to build a relationship with someone, you need to convince them that this will be good for their career. AI will not help you. It's actually a hindrance because you'll make assumptions that are wrong. And if I say to you, Deepak, I know you like vanilla, you have a choice. You can say, no, Shane, I don't like vanilla. Why? Or you just nod, sure, even though your favorite is chocolate. And
but
so
you
I
just, yeah,
to your earlier point, right? The smart play is to say, hey Deepak, I've done my research. Obviously, I see from your website that it looks like you're interested in A and B. Is that the truth, or is that currently still the case, or
does that resonate with you?
top
Correct.
priority as a business, or is that your boss's top priority? It's you can use it to ask better questions, but you still need to ask the questions. You still need to demonstrate understanding, and those things require people. People like people. The last analogy I use is: do you remember when, if you're older, discount brokerage came out back in the day, and people said, "Oh, it was the death of a full service brokerage in the world." Why would anybody go to a full service broker to make stock trades when they can do it online
When you can get,
and
yeah,
save a fortune? And they can do all their own research. It's all there, and yet that didn't happen. Right? There's still tons of full service brokers making really good money because people, when it's complicated and when there's a high trust factor involved, they want to deal with
they
somebody.
want to, yeah, agreed,
Deepak thinks
agreed.
this is right for me. I talked to Deepak. I explained my situation. He said, "You know what, Shane, for your sales team, given your market, here's the sales approach I'd look into."
This is what,
Click, 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 and they want that. They're versus a course that they can download.
got it. Shane, clearly you and I can keep talking until the
Yeah,
next iteration of AI comes out. I am really excited by this. And I think one of the things that I would like to just kind of summarize from this conversation is that I'm grateful that the AI conversation came at the end of it all, right? Because to me, AI is just a means to the end, right?
Yep.
The first 50 minutes that you and I spoke, I think, was a really conversation on some basic tenets, some basic stuff that always remain true, irrespective of. You're right. And you were very polite with your words. I would actually say AI gives people the opportunity to scale stupidity at rates that were never capable of them doing before. I have used AI to send, I kid you not, Shane, 18,000 to 20,000 emails a freaking month if I want. Has that delivered higher revenue in my returns? No, it's not, because everyone can do it easily now. But
Yeah.
Shane, that's another podcast, that's another
Yes.
conversation. I'd like to thank you for joining us, Shane. My
Real
audience
pleasure.
is going to be looking at their clocks at this point in this show and saying, oh
Yes.
my God, nearly an hour. No, it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 55 minutes. Thank you, Shane. You take care.
Real pleasure.
Till
All
next
right.
time. Bye bye,
Thank you.
everyone.